As a war of words ensues over the US-led diplomatic boycott of the Beijing Winter Olympics next month, China's human rights abuses in East Turkestan and Tibet have once again been thrust into the spotlight. Looking at the Uyghur case in particular, we come across the word genocide, which of course raises very pertinent questions. What exactly is the People's Republic of China doing in East Turkestan, and what exactly are they trying to hide? Joining me today to answer some of these pertinent questions is a very, very special guest. He is a Uyghur himself from East Turkestan, has been a crusader for the human rights of his people since at least 1988, for which he has had to flee his homeland and hasn't returned since. And it is my pleasure to introduce Mr. Dolkun Isa, the president of the World Uyghur Congress. Sir, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So, sir, before I get into the questions that I have drawn up for you, I think it would be very helpful if we could get a bird's eye view of what exactly is happening in East Turkestan right now. What is meant by genocide here? And what does it mean to be an Uyghur under the People's Republic of China today?
Well, thank you. And today, if we can use one word, what was going on for the Uyghur people in East Turkestan? Today, Chinese Communist Party, Chinese government commit genocide against the Uyghur. So today's situation is dire. Actually, this situation was not new. East Turkestan has been occupied by Chinese Communist Army in 1949. Since the occupation, this problem exists all the time because some people say, oh, suddenly some problem is happening with the Uyghurs in China. No, it is incorrect. This problem exists all the time, but level is different. Level is different. So, and this discrimination policy, assimilation policy of the Chinese government towards the Uyghur and has never changed. But time to time, Chinese government changes strategy, changes way. Sometimes Chinese government use with mask to implement it. Sometimes use very violent way to implement it, this policy. But since 2014, current President Xi Jinping, even 2013, after he took the power in China, he took out his mask and he openly implemented this genocidal policy. It is mean, since 2014 or 2015, Chinese government strategy for the Uyghur from assimilation and discrimination policy into genocidal policy. So now, and millions of people are suffering in concentration camp. Chinese government turned whole region as open air prison.
Correct. Sir, it's interesting you brought up the Xi Jinping years and, of course, the gradual escalation of human rights abuses. So between 2007 to 2016, the People's Republic of China, until then, used to publish their domestic security spending across regions and provinces. And on aggregate, that spending went up by 215%. Whereas in East Turkestan in particular, you saw an almost jaw-dropping 411% increase. What exactly is the Chinese Communist Party so scared of in East Turkestan?
Well, Chinese Communist Party is using the term terrorism threat as a legitimate excuse to justify the genocide against the Uyghur and the Kazakh some other, especially after September 11 terrorist attack. China saw an opportunity with global war against the terrorism. Before the September 11, Chinese government didn't use the term terrorism. Any Uyghur activism, or for any Uyghur activists, Chinese government used separatists, religious fundamentalists, something like. But up September 11, China and they immediately changed language within one night. Oh, we are victim of terrorism because we are Muslim. So that time, unfortunately, most of them Western media, world media, put the same category, Muslim, Islam, and terrorism. Then China want to use this excuse, then crack down. So that's why China and trying to legitimate to make it justify this crime. So and we have seen since the 2009, one of the peaceful uprising was happening, 5th of July 2009. So Chinese government also blames this demonstration and also terrorist attack. But the Uyghurs use mostly. They don't have any weapon. They don't have any gun, nothing. Just even they are crying Chinese flag because they are avoid to accuse separatism even. Normally Uyghur people doesn't like Chinese flag. We not accept, but this use even crying the Chinese flag, it is mean we are not separatists. We don't have any other propose or propose just demand justice. Because 2 weeks ago, before the demonstration, 16 Uyghurs worker killed by the Chinese worker in Guangdong area. So although Chinese government say only 2 Uyghurs were killed, but we believe more than at the 16. However, even 1 people is killed is a crime. Chinese government must be take accountable for this, should be fined his mother. But almost 2 weeks, Chinese government didn't arrest any people or killer as a suspect. So that's why Uyghur people gathering that time social media was available. Then demonstration and the official number, Chinese government officials saying 197 people were killed. And what we believe, unofficial numbers since more than 30, 14 years, couple of thousand Uyghur escaped from East Turkistan to Europe, United States, different of country, Turkey. There are reports, some say 2,000 people were killed within one night, some say 3,000, some 1,000. We don't know exact number, but a couple of hundred, even more than 1,000 people were killed. So China, and since then, and increasing insecurity and spend more money. So China know, as I already said, turn whole region is open in person, area security camera, in person, and yeah. So China spend a lot of money for the security system to crack down to the Uyghurs. So that's why, because of this, not only people who live in a concentration camp, even of the Uyghur who living in the normal life in the outside the camp, also daily life under threatens. Daily life, everything is a big has been big impact by for Chinese security system.
It's interesting that there was a lot to take away from that, but it is interesting you pointed out that it is not just the Uyghurs that are being discriminated against here, but even other Turkic minorities like Kazakhs, for example. And you have an entire population under surveillance. However, you did point out, interestingly, that China has been trying to conflate its oppression with the narrative on the war on terror, which has, of course, been underway since 2001. Now, coming to, and very recently this caused a controversy, investor, he's a billionaire, Chamath Palihapitiya, on a podcast made some unfortunate remarks about the genocide, which seemed to be based on some false assumptions. Now, what would you attribute these assumptions to? Would you attribute this to ignorance or Chinese propaganda being very successful? What exactly does this tell you about the discourse regarding the genocide today?
Well, first, I would like to say his comment is terrible and inhuman. So, unfortunately, this reflects and the current view of many CEOs and the billionaire and millionaire, unfortunately, of wider corporate community towards this issue, which is the unfortunate situation, because for them, money is important than human being. Human rights institution and the human rights violation exists around the world. Is different level. Okay, if this situation, if people can maybe also maybe because of the money, they can ignore it for this. This is also not be understandable, not acceptable. However, but maybe people say, oh, human rights violation exists United States, Germany, around the world. So that's why I have to make business. Okay, this is we can acceptable, understandable. Not acceptable by understandable. But today, 21st century genocide taking place for the Uyghurs. People is dying. So in this situation, his kind of comment and he doesn't care what was happening in Uyghur. This is really unacceptable. This is inhuman. The situation. The whataboutism. It is meaning whataboutism. This narrative and engaging is genocide denialism. Denials, it's just not accept is extremely dangerous because it defends authoritarian regime. It is exactly what Chinese government wants. So provides more chance to the dictator regime, authoritarian regime to continue to the genocide. This is something that like good message to the Chinese government and some other authoritarian regime, saying, oh, it is meaning this message not only and not acceptable genocide, even encourage and support, and it is also something like is cooperate for the genocide. So this is really unfortunate, and yes, money is important, but human life should not be less important than money. So this is the Chinese. And of course, China is a big market. But if this millionaires' fathers, sister, if has been and faced to torture or rape, and what does his or some other millionaires reflect? And his reaction is same. So it is really unfortunate. That's why so many international media really condemning and unresponsible comment for this. Yeah, this idea incorporates culture and essential say, oh, my own profit is inherently good, no matter how much harm it can cause also other people. Other way is the inhuman and the was calling out. Yeah.
And yet, actually, on that note, somewhat ironically, the podcast also touched upon, although albeit not directly, on the Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act, which the U.S. just passed, which will, of course, make it very difficult for companies that are relying on production based out of East Turkistan, where forced labor has been used. And yet the efficacy of which has come under debate somewhat, although implementation remains to be seen. In your opinion, just how effective can this bill be?
Well, this bill on the issue of the Uyghur forced labor was signed into the law, which is quite significant for us, because now is in the Western companies, quite a lot of German company, European companies, and the U.S. company has continued business with China, and some company we have a clear proof evidence direct link with forced labor. For example, Boss German company and the Nike, Adidas, all buy the cotton by China. 85% cotton in China coming from Uyghur forced labor. This is not I'm saying. This is the experts saying. They are already put a lot of evidence and use Chinese resource. So globally 22% cotton from the Uyghur forced labor. But this company continue make business with China. So we, World Uyghur Congress, and some other international coalition, almost since 1.5 years, 2 years, and continue reach out to the company, which company have direct link with the forced labor, asking them to stop business with China because genocide is ongoing. Some very small company understand this serious issue, then stop buying the cotton in China by forced labor. For example, H&M and some company. But most of some company continue make business, ignore it for the all warning. And so this situation, this moral obligation, some company understand it has a moral obligation, but most of some company doesn't care, ignore it. It is moral obligation. So that's why this and such kind of law, forced labor law bill, it's very important to stop this company and make business. Then no, it's up to this bill. Some company have legal obligation. No. Just a moral obligation not good enough to stop them the business. So is a legal obligation, and then necessarily this law will prevent complicity of the American company and also some Chinese company in genocide and crime against humanity. So it is very, very, very significant. Now we are going to pushing some other European countries like European countries and the German countries and UK also and Canada forced to and approve this Uyghur Forced Labor Act.
Correct. And now coming to legal obligations and
Yes.
international coalitions, you also very recently had an independent tribunal affirm the CCP's crimes against the Uyghurs and other Turkic minorities and the fact that they amounted to genocide and crimes against humanity. If you could just explain what is the significance of this step? Why is it so significant that you had an independent tribunal that was able to affirm this?
Yeah, it is very significant because Chinese government denied everything all the time. Oh, we don't have, at the beginning, China saying, oh, we don't have such a camp or any center. But after the growing up the international pressure, Chinese government changed narrative. This is vocational training centers. It's not the concentration camp or detention center. But so many experts, professors, scholar, football player, singer, and like my mother and the retired woman, retired man, religious figure, all and the suffering in the concentration camp. Then there's some international research institute, even Uyghur organization published a document. Then China couldn't hide them anymore. There's reality, then changing narrative again. Oh, I'm fighting terrorism and radicalism. So China time to time playing the game and denied everything, changing narrative. So some country already, United States, Canada, Netherlands, UK, parliament recognized Uyghur genocide. But China all the time saying, oh, this is Western transparency, you know, CIA transparency. And this Western country doesn't want to Chinese develop something that like. So, but this Uyghur tribunal is the independent people's tribunal. This Uyghur tribunal and is very carefully studied and collected the evidence, 100,000 page evidence, and more than 500 hearing and they have it make testimony, more than 500 testimony, and more than 18 months study that finally and Uyghur tribunal make judgment Chinese government atrocity against Uyghur as a genocide and the crime against humanity. This is the other urgent reminder for the United Nations and all state parties to 1948 Genocide Convention to fulfill their legal and moral obligation under international law to stop this ongoing genocide, as well as hold accountable those who are responsible for this crime. That's why this is very significant. And also, besides this, so many documentation on the judgment of the tribunal aid to mounting evidence and atrocity crime committed by the Chinese government. Yeah.
So, despite all this documentation, mountains of evidence of people illegally detained, violence, sexual violence, concentration camps, and whatnot, you have still struggled to get the United Nations to invoke Article 8 of the Genocide Convention to at least investigate what is going on behind the camps in East Turkistan. Why, in your opinion, has the UN remained silent thus far?
Well, this is a great question, but we all are aware of how difficult it to get the United Nations moving with sensitive issue like Uyghur genocide, because there is an incredible amount of the pressure coming from China. Today, we have witnessed Chinese government use its economic power trying to manipulate the UN system and also some other international organization, international system. And the Chinese government is attempting to disrupt the international justice system and redefine its international order of human rights as we know it. So even though we know China misuse Interpol, for example, and all regime critical put the red notes and stop or activism. Even also, I had red notes for them 21 years, but I have fight my right. Finally, 2018, my red notes was denied and cancelled. But however, since the 21 years, I was detained so many country border. Even today, I cannot enter India. 2016, my electronic visa was denied by India because of the Chinese pressure. So, if come back to the topic, China is very strong and use economic card and trying to manipulate it, yuan system, and also pressure to the countries to don't implement. So it is a very unfortunate situation. That's why the 21st century, the genocide ongoing, but still not single resolution passed by the UN or General Assembly or UN Human Rights Council. Even not single urgent special section was happening by the UN Human Rights Council because China blocked all. This is the unfortunate situation. Yeah.
It's interesting, the situation you described as perhaps symptomatic of the larger problem of the PRC trying to get international institutions to bend to their will. And you also specifically, you mentioned several Uyghur refugees fleeing to different countries and
Yes.
talked about the manipulation of Interpol, of which you were also a victim for some 21 years.
Yes.
China has been using Interpol in an attempt to target Uyghur dissidents abroad. What can individual governments do to prevent such abuse? And in your experience, have some governments perhaps been more or less cooperative than others in this specific regard?
Well, actually, all countries, particularly which signed 1948 Convention on the Genocide, and then all countries had legal obligation today. So, but as you say, some small country, some European country and United States, Canada, some country really take concrete action. European Union as well. Last year, European Union plus UK, United States, and Canada, and sanction for Chinese high-level official who direct link for the ongoing genocide. It is good, but still a lot of countries in the world silent. Even some countries not silent cooperate with China, complicit of this genocide. And besides this, some democratic countries also cannot come in united voice, unfortunately. But dictator regime, authoritarian regime led by China, they are coming united voice. But democratic voice not coming united sometimes because of the economic profit. Yes. So only United States or only some country coming together is not good enough to stop this Uyghur genocide. That's why all countries, particularly democratic nation, coming together and being one voice, cooperate each other. This is the only way to stop the ongoing Uyghur genocide.
Correct. And now coming to the US-led diplomatic boycott of the Beijing Olympics next month, it has certainly stirred a war of words between the PRC and countries that are observing the boycott. And it certainly brought the issues of East Turkestan, Tibet, even Hong Kong back into the spotlight. As far as tangible results are concerned, what do you hope to see as a result of this boycott, in addition to perhaps greater awareness?
But it is very, very significant. It sent out very clear message to the to the Beijing Chinese government that international community will not simply watch and stay silent when China is hosting Olympic Games, whilst carry out genocide against the Uyghur, Kazakh, Aztec people, and also crack down Hong Kong democracy. And this is also a step towards accountability. Beijing cannot do what is want without facing any consequences. And this also gives hope to the whole community, Hong Kong's people, Tibetan people, that world care about our people are suffering. And this is this thing. And also multilateral action, because many countries follow suit. Because first United States and they call diplomatic boycott, then later Canada, Australia, no more than I think 12 countries. Of course, and still quite a lot of countries continue silence, and also quite a lot of countries continue willing to join this. But at least some democratic country, and they show and they send clear message saying no. We cannot complicity or partner of this genocide. This is the very significant message to the world, also China as well.
And I believe we're coming to the end of our time. Mr. Isa, that was very insightful. I must thank you once again for joining us. Before we conclude, I must ask you whether you perhaps have a message for an Indian audience, if there's perhaps something you would like the Indian government to do, or something you would like to see on the part of the Indian public. Please take a moment and please let us know what that is.
Thank you. Yes, and India is the one of the biggest economy in the world, and also democratic system, democratic nation in the Asia. So, and the neighboring country in East Turkestan as well, and India has hosted the hundreds of thousands Tibetan refugees. So India should not be silenced anymore. You know, we know, and quite a lot of civil society, India people, and quite clearly understand what's going on for the Uyghur people, what's going on for the Tibetan people, Hong Kong's people, and today is a genocide ongoing. In this situation, India government must be breaking its silence and speaking out, and also openly declare in the diplomatic boycott of this, diplomatic boycott, and the India athletes also should not be joining forces. Some country has a legal obligation to stop this ongoing genocide and stop the Beijing Olympics. And some athletes have legal moral obligation and to stop this Uyghur genocide and the Beijing Olympics. And some media also have some obligation. Don't broadcasting this Beijing Olympic. This is also some kind of good result. And also, human being, individual, should not be watching. I will not watch Beijing Olympic because it's not Beijing Olympic. It is genocidal games, we call it. It is not Olympic. Because Olympic meaning is getting people together, solidarity, understanding each other, and guarantee better world for the world. But no, it's ongoing. The genocide is going on. So it is not Olympics. This is completely against the soul of the Olympic. So that's why Indian people, Indian government, Indian civil society all have responsibility to stop ongoing Uyghur genocide and also ongoing Beijing genocide games.
On behalf of everyone at Global Order, Mr. Isa, once again, thank you very much for your time.
I thank you.